Hi everyone, Dr. V here. I am a dentist and I am currently in a specialty program for orthodontics, which is essentially braces. So I'm doing this video today on how to be a competitive applicant for dental school or how to get into dental school, because as we know, applying to be a dentist can be very competitive these days. So I want to go over some tips and things that either I did in my journey or wish I had known to be a competitive applicant. One of the first things that I want to stress is to definitely strive to have a high GPA. Your GPA scores truly matter, and that's the first thing that schools look at. So definitely you want to strive for excellence and get A's in almost all of your classes. Now we know in reality you may not get an A in every class, and that's okay. But my suggestion would be to make sure that when you're like a freshman or sophomore, to really try to get A's in almost all of those classes, those core classes, those intro classes, classes that are a little bit easier, because as you go through college and you become a junior or a senior, those classes usually just get harder. So it's harder to get that A. So when you start off and you try to strive for A's in all your classes, that will at least give you a cushion, so that in case you do get a B or even a C in a later class, like as a junior or a senior, you at least have a little cushion to fall back on. So definitely try to strive to have A's, and you want to have a high GPA because schools definitely look at that. Also, there is a thing when you're applying for dental school as a Science GPA. So they have your overall GPA where they look at your core classes and your prerequisites to get into dental school, but you also have a Science GPA. And in my first video, I talked about classes that are required to take, like you have to take the biology, the chemistry, the physics. So you do have a GPA that's purely for those science classes. So you want to make sure that you're doing well in those science classes. And some things that I did or kind of learned along my journey to do well in those classes are, one thing is, if you're struggling with the subject matter, definitely look into getting a tutor. There's nothing wrong with getting a tutor or getting help if you don't understand something. I definitely had a tutor for a good amount of my classes and it really helped me. So there's no shame in getting a tutor. If you need that help, definitely get one. Another good thing that's helpful are study groups. So you guys are all in the same class. You're trying to learn the same material. You can like read and do things on your own, but I do think that it's helpful to have like a review session or a study group maybe when you're preparing for an exam or something, because one person may be really good at this one concept and you may be good at another, so that you can bounce ideas off of one another and exchange information and really do well that way. So definitely study groups I would suggest looking into if that works for you. Also, another good tip is utilizing the professor's office hours. They are the ones that are making the exam for you and they're teaching you the material. So if you are struggling with the topic, definitely go see them. This will help you build a relationship with your professor, and also for them to see that, hey, I'm actually trying to learn the material. So utilizing that would be great to build rapport and to actually learn the material that the professor is trying to teach you. So on the same topic of building genuine relationships with your professor, a part of the application process, you have to have letters of recommendation, and you want to make sure that those letters of recommendation are genuine and sincere and strong. So while you are also utilizing the professor's office hours, you're building a personal relationship with them, so that if you do want them to write you a letter of recommendation, they can actually make it very personalized, and that looks good to the schools that you're applying to. Staying on the topic of letters of recommendation, you want to make sure that, I think you have to have at least 3. So you want to make sure it's someone who can attest to your character, so like I said, the personal relationship, someone who can say, okay, they are a hard worker, they did really well in my class, maybe they struggled with one area, but they really worked hard and they got an A out of it. You want to have a professor or someone who can attest to your character traits and things that help you look good to the school. You also want to have someone who is in a good or high position. I think that is very strong to have someone who has a lot of authority and in a high position in your college or somewhere else. So if they hold a high position and they show strong leadership skills and they're showcasing like, hey, this is a great applicant, that also looks good. And you also want to have someone who is a dentist. You're trying to go into the field of dentistry. So if you can have a personal relationship with the dentist and they can write a letter for you saying like, yes, they've shadowed in my office, or I know that they're really dedicated to the field of dentistry, that looks strong to have someone who is actually a dentist that is vouching for you to get into dental school. So someone that you have a personal relationship with and that can attest to your character, someone that has a high leadership role in an organization or the school or anything like that, and someone who is actually a dentist, someone who's in the field of what you're trying to pursue. So I think you have to have at least 3. You can have more, but those I think would be 3 strong letters of recommendation that you can have for your application. Another key thing to do to be a strong or competitive applicant to get into dental school is to make sure that you're involved on campus. Yes, it's good to have the high GPA, and that is pretty much required, but you also want to make sure that you're involved because the schools are looking for an applicant that is well-rounded. So you want to make sure that you're involved on various clubs and organizations on campus. Now, they should be related to dentistry or the medical field. They don't all have to be. So I think it's good to have a variety of different clubs or organizations that you're a part of. So whether that's like the Health Careers Club at your school, or whether that's part of like Operation Smile, for example, that's an organization that I was a part of that deals with dentistry. I think that looks good to be involved in an organization that pertains to the dental field. But you can also do like mentoring opportunities, be a part of clubs or organizations that are geared towards community service. That's a big thing that they do look for. So making sure that you're involved, and then do stuff that you're actually passionate about, so that when you do go on those interviews and they ask you about the organizations or the clubs that you are a part of, you are passionate about what you're talking about, and then you have a lot to say. So be an active member. Don't just be a part of all these organizations and don't really do anything, because then you can't really talk about what you've done. So join these organizations and clubs, be an active member, and also hold leadership positions. If you can, join the e-board. Schools definitely like to see applicants that assume leadership roles and take responsibility in those roles, and they excel in those positions. So definitely look into joining different organizations and clubs and doing well in those and being active in those organizations. So another portion of the application is shadowing hours. They do want you to document how many hours you've actually shadowed a dentist. So definitely looking into doing that throughout your time in college. You can shadow a local dentist that's close by your school, or like when you go home on breaks, you can shadow a dentist that's around your home or something like that. It's important to, and you can also shadow different dentists. It doesn't have to be one person, but they definitely ask for how many shadowing hours that you have. And I would say a good number to strive for would be like 100+ hours of shadowing throughout 4 years. You could definitely do it. So shadowing is big and key, and I would suggest shadowing different dentists, because then you also get exposure into how different people run their office. You can maybe shadow different specialties in case you want to look into specializing. So make sure that you shadow a dentist and you log a lot of hours, because you also get exposure and they'll ask you about your shadowing opportunities, and that's something that you can put on your resume. So shadowing a dentist or a couple of dentists and getting that exposure to really see, even for yourself, do I really like this? Do I know what it entails? And am I willing to do this for my career? So those are things to think about. Shadowing is very important, and it's a big part of the application. Another thing that I want to touch on is utilizing your summers. It's so important to do well while you're in college and in school, and to have those high grades and to be involved in campus, but you also need to utilize your summers in a productive way. That's big for schools and what they really look for. So you can shadow during the summertime. You can also be a part of different programs during the summer. So I think one is SMDEP, I want to say. And then also different institutions have other summer opportunities. I did a program at the University of Connecticut, which was actually a DAT prep program, which is the DAT is the exam you have to take to get into dental school. So they had a prep program where they actually paid you to do the program. They gave you a Kaplan Kaplan resources and a Kaplan tutor, and they paid for your meals every day, and then they gave you money on the weekends for your meals, and then at the end, I want to say they also gave you money for doing the program. So I don't think it can really get any better than that, and it really helped me do well on the DAT, or better than I would have done if I didn't have a program. So look into those different things. You can just Google summer programs for dental students or for dental applicants, something like that. And there are a lot of different programs and different institutions that offer those opportunities for those in undergrad that want to have that kind of dental exposure. They offer different things. Not every program is the same, but definitely looking into that, along with maybe possibly shadowing. One thing that I also did during one of my summers was I went abroad. So there's an organization called Global Brigades where I went abroad with a group from Emory, and we were there for maybe a week or 5 days, I want to say. And while there, I was assisting the dentist there, and then I was also speaking in Spanish to the kids there about like what is proper dental hygiene, what is bacteria, how to properly brush your teeth, and we also gave fluoride treatments while we were there. So that was a great experience that I had, and if you have the means to do it and the opportunity to go abroad, I would suggest definitely doing that, especially when it's related to dentistry, because that is something that can set you apart as a competitive applicant and something that you can talk about that most of the other applicants probably didn't do. So if you can do that, look into that for sure. Along with having a high GPA, another score that's very vital to getting into dental school is your DAT score. So the DAT is, as I mentioned before, the test that you have to take to get into dental school. And, you know, it's a pretty big deal. So you want to make sure that you do well in it. I'm definitely someone who used to not be a very good standardized test taker. So that's why I had to do the prep program at UConn, because I know I needed that extra help. So if you do need that help, definitely either get a tutor or look into programs that can help you do well on the DAT. So the DAT is a test, and it has different sections. So it's a 90-minute exam, and I had to look up the different parts because I definitely forgot. So the sections on the DAT include natural sciences, so that's biology and that, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry. Those things are on the test, so you have to really know that material. They also have the perceptibility part of the exam, so that's kind of like shapes and perception. I don't know how to really describe it, but that's pretty big on the test. You have reading comprehension, and then quantitative reasoning math. So those are the sections on the exam, and it's a pretty tough exam, and you want to do well on it. So like I said, if you really need that extra help like I did, there's nothing wrong with that. Get the extra help, because this is in part important of the application, and you want to do well, because if you have a high score, and whether or not you have a high GPA, if you have a high DAT score, that still can put you in a really good position to apply to a lot of programs, because some programs also have a minimum score that you have to get before they even look at your application. So this exam is a big part of your application. So outside of doing a program like I did, there are resources that you can use to do well on the exam. So there's the DAT Destroyer. That's a resource that I heard good things about. Crack the DAT is one, and then also the Kaplan resources that they have. They have like practice exams. They have books that you can like learn the information on. So utilizing those resources will be very helpful. So just to recap some of the key things that I think are important to get into dental school or to be a competitive applicant are striving to have that high GPA, especially early on, so that you have a cushion when classes get harder. Having a good science GPA as well, so doing well in the science classes that you're taking. Being involved on campus, being an active member in the clubs and organizations, and also having leadership roles is essential. You want to build genuine relationships with your professors so that people can write you a good, solid letter of recommendation. Shadowing is key. You want to have a certain amount of shadowing hours. I don't know if I really mentioned this, but you want to utilize the health careers office. They are well connected. They have people come in and talk. So if you do have like a health career club or organization on your campus, use that. Go to when people speak, and also know people in leadership positions in that, because they can also look out for you in case there are opportunities that come their way. They can think of you. Score well on the DAT. This is very critical, and you want to apply early. Apply early is good. You don't want to be last minute with your application, because it shows that you're last minute with stuff. So apply early. You want to visit schools if possible. If there's a school that's close to you and that you have the opportunity to go and visit, I would suggest doing that. Obviously, you need to do well on your interview. So I will do a video on like interview tips and things to keep in mind to do well on your interview and not be so nervous. That's it for now. And if you guys have any other questions or any other topics that you want me to talk about or expand on, definitely feel free to DM me and I can respond back as soon as possible. Have a great day.